They'll be here in 3 minutes, I bet. Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. It is 4:02 PM on Tuesday, December 12th. Thank you all for being here. First, we have to approve the agenda. This is where you can add things, move things, remove things, or someone can say, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
I would, I'd like to add,
Oh, yeah.
at least to start a discussion about the downtown dollars.
All right, can we put that on new business?
Yeah.
All right. So then someone can say, Aaron, say, I'm the,
Minutes as adjusted.
I second. All right, Nancy, awesome. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, there's our agenda. Approval of the minutes. I don't have to ask. I mean, somebody can just,
A lot of minutes. Yeah,
Bill moves to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Matthew seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, downtown event update.
All right, so now that our event season is over after Saturday, we got one more event left. There was a couple of things we wanted to go over, but one in particular. So first, what I did before the meeting was, in the back of the agenda packet, I tried to pull together all of the events that we know of that will be happening next year. And these are just events that are down, in Main Street or 7th Avenue. Just kind of a good, it could be some that are missing, especially some smaller ones, but, just always kind of good to know what all events that we have, particularly that close the street down, their general estimated attendance, and what part of the street that they close. So that's just kind of something as reference. If you see on that right-hand column, the far right organizer contact, any of them that say Friends of Downtown are the ones that we, as in mostly Terry and Dakota, but the three of us plus Lou sometimes work on.
0.01.
So just so y'all know, those are the things that the times when we're quite busy. And then one that has requested a change this year that we know of so far is Fiesta Hendersonville. They have previously been in October and they haven't happened the past couple of years. Mostly it's been because of weather. And so they are looking to change it to May 5th, which would be Cinco de Mayo. And that's all, that's on South Main Street over by the Visiting Center block as well. The topic that we wanted to talk about with y'all today is about Rhythm and Brews, because that's one that we put on. So since Rhythm and Brews started, it's been the third Thursday, May through September. And we've been talking about it internally and talked about it with the events team last week, trying to remember when we had it, about looking to change that from May through September to June through October. A few reasons for it. One, our presenting sponsor has brought that up as a suggestion, and we don't want to ignore that because he's been a supporter of us for a long time. And two, as you might can tell from this, May is a particularly busy time for us as far as events go. Part of that is because we took over Garden Jubilee last year for the first time. And so all of the events that we do,
2 minutes late.
10 minutes.
No. 4:05 is Joe's time, so it's.
You're not wrong.
Joe, to recap, but this one's important to you probably more so than about anybody else in the room.
Okay.
We're talking about Rhythm and Brews, and we've been talking about internally and events team about changing it from May to September to June to October. Part of it is because our presenting sponsor has suggested it, and also May, especially with the addition of Garden Jubilee, is the front end of all of our events. So we are planning for Rhythm and Brews, Farmers Market, Bear Reveal, Garden Jubilee. All of those events in May, whereas that's not one that we do.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're doing all of the planning and logistics for those events in May, whereas in October, that's on the end of the season where things are a little less of the front end work. By the end of the season, things are a little bit more smooth sailing for us for a lot of things.
It's a no-brainer, my perspective. The weather's beautiful. In October, it's a lot like.
And we've had some October events.
There's so many people in town where May can be hit or miss with both weather and crowds.
I like it when these things kind of offset slow times. It's easy to do business in a restaurant on like a holiday, but like a Thursday in October, it's nice to draw people out.
So you're saying it's slower as a Thursday in
Yeah.
October?
Well,
To have an, or a better time to have an event?
exactly, yeah, I like that. Supplement kind of off tourism season,
Mhm.
these events.
I would say do both May and October. Right, I know,
You knew that was gonna happen, come up.
Yes, it is. Love
but
that.
I guess I don't really care. I mean, other than I would love a goal to be in a few years, having an additional one to the ones we have.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm always surprised at people that drive from 5 hours away to come to it, and that's why they're here for the weekend.
And isn't that the main?
My mind, but they
the
do
main
it.
Moneymaker of the whole thing, of, the Friends, isn't that the biggest moneymaker?
It depends. May typically is the big one regardless of band, but sometimes it's the band, sometimes it's the weather, depending on for other months out of the year.
Needs R&B.
I just mean
Yeah.
R&B as a whole, so if there was an extra one, I mean,
Yeah.
to help raise more money, potentially.
Depends,
It's an expensive one too. It's like both a revenue generator, but it's also a lot that we lay out on each one. So actually last year was tough because of all the rain.
Yeah, there's two that were. Two were really tough.
That makes it, we don't make as much on sales of the day of. The sponsorships kind of keep us from ever being in particular trouble. But if it rains and we don't sell, as much as we would for a larger show, that impacts the overall year. Yeah, I mean, 6 is hard just from I've never wanted to do 6 from the logistics when I was more in Terry's shoes. Just in terms of the volume, I think it would also maybe require us to look at kind of how the sponsorships work, which we're also already kind of pressing everybody probably for everything that they we'd almost have to kind of figure out how to do it just on the additional revenue, not necessarily with a whole lot of additional. I mean, Terry is a better sponsorship getter than me. And can probably clear some more headroom there, but
We used to do.
Makes sense.
Right?
But the whole,
we did 4 the very first year, and then we've done 5 ever since then.
but the whole point is you're wanting to make it later in the year instead of earlier because y'all are so busy.
Right.
There's still the same amount of them, and I think
Well, I'm.
later in the year, October is kind of good too, because isn't that when all the Oktoberfest stuff is happening and
Yeah, so
All
I mean, when we first did it, there was not really anything happening in May. There was no farmer's market. There was no, we didn't do the bear reveal. There wasn't the bear half marathon. I mean, there were none of the events that are now in the month of May, other than Garden Jubilee. And now there's a lot more in May, number one. And then with us taking on Garden Jubilee, there's a lot more that we're doing in May. So it would relieve the staff pressure in May, and it doesn't leave a big gap in terms of activities that are occurring in May. October is not exactly like void of activities either. I mean, there's there's a street and other things going on, but it is always easier to finish the season off than it is to start it. Getting everything off the ground the first time is much more challenging.
I'm fine with moving it, but I do think that like considering how we do events overall, how we run downtown as a event venue, that's kind of, I've started thinking of it. Like, think of it as Harrah's Cherokee, but much better than that. But like, you have so many logistical pieces and to start, I mean, we're still responding to event asks, not necessarily new ones, but we're still in a responsive position rather than a strategic position. And I think that we need to start shifting towards that with like a bigger management team, like we're bringing the flowers under the downtown arm. We need to continue doing things like that. If that's what we decide to do, I think that probably is what we need to decide to do. So down the road, going May through October would be what we should do. Now for next year, whatever, switch it, fine. But I'm just trying to broaden the conversation more about the whole thing.
Makes a lot of.
And we have like the parade, which I know you don't want to do parade, I'm not gonna suggest that, but that Merchants Association, if we want to have a parade, should we be having a parade? I'm not sure we should. We're a major US highway, there's lots of questions with that. But if we are going to want to have a parade, there will come a time where someone will have to run it and it will not be the group who's running it now. Antique show, probably pretty good for now. There's probably not that far within 10 years or less, probably 5 to 8. Those folks will either be passing it along or we take it under our arm or we get rid of it or whatever. Like, these are the things we need to start thinking about. So fine to switch it for next year, but it only solves the problem of, God, John keeps texting me, it's driving me crazy. We only solve the problem of the May thing, which is I know it's a big deal for you guys. I'm not trying to lessen that, but it really is in the grand scheme of things, this little tiny piece that we're just shifting to make things a little easier in May, but it doesn't really solve the overarching problem of we need more management, more staff to pull all these things off. Not to say that people aren't doing a good job. That is not what I'm saying. You guys do an amazing job, but I want more resources for downtown. I want more people for downtown. I want us to do bigger, better, more management things.
Proper beer festival.
I think so. I think you guys have talked about this, and I think this is going to kind of continue to manifest as we get into the downtown master plan and things like that. But part of making all of that easier is having a space that's easier to do it in. I know we've tossed around the idea of amphitheater and things like that. I think that makes, if we're not paying, we pay $4,000, almost $4,500 to put a stage on Main Street every time we do R&B. If I don't have to pay that much to put a stage on Main Street, there's a stage somewhere or a space. We're not closing streets the same way. Those are the kinds of things that translate to those kind of bigger impacts. It's like it's not just the people that do it in the place that we have now, it's creating the place to do the thing that you want to do. And that's what we've been doing, right? Slowly but surely. We're going to talk about more of that on the next one. But with the acoustic coming in and those kinds of things, that's in my mind, that's sort of a next chapter for the district overall is what does that look like? And what does the community want to see? And what does downtown want to see? And
that was the other thing for events that I wanted to talk about, because we talked about this a month or two ago, was events that don't necessarily close the street, like a stops open late evening, like a once a month, first Friday, third, whatever day type of thing. And for the old fashioned Christmas that Terry got all kinds of good activities going on the street. We kind of had talked whenever we talked about this before, that's kind of a way to get a concept going for something like that. If that's something we want to look to do, maybe on a smaller scale into next year with a bigger, because things like that will, one, provide an opportunity that's not closing the street down, which is not necessarily always a bad thing to have events where it's not closing the street down and create that what people were saying in those council conversations was about just things to do that don't have as much of a logistical thing as like a full street closure type of an event. I don't necessarily know or have any suggestions on how we move forward on anything like that, or if there's any thoughts on that, but that was the other thing that we'd kind of tossed around a month or two ago here.
Is there a space that you think would be suitable for an outdoor facility, for like a permanent facility for?
Yes.
It's being tossed around, yeah, so I think that'll kind of come out, I don't wanna. Because I think there's gonna be some efforts to visualize that, both in the comp plan, but also maybe more importantly with the Parks Master Plan. So I think there's more to come there and you guys will have an opportunity to respond and react to that and see what you like and what
You're not saying.
But so yes, I do think there are a number of places, yeah. Yes is the answer, but I'm not gonna try and describe it because I don't want to booger it up.
Colder.
Like think Trailhead Park. For the Acoustic Trail. We own a bunch of property down there. Some of it needs to be floodplain and floodway. Others of it maybe can be park. So,
It's a matter of size.
yeah, kind of
and
how big
scale,
things
yeah.
need to be and how big we're willing to take on, but we think that creating a bike connection between the trail and Main Street and the south end of Main being re-envisioned for that connectivity is essential. And then are there opportunities for a park and event space to be integrated into that in one way or another?
And do we need to decide now, telling you change your meat or your rhythm and brews?
So I think, yeah, we probably do.
Do we need like a motion? Is that what you?
It doesn't hurt.
Okay.
I mean, to have one from this board, that way it's not staff just making that decision.
Is there any, could we do something on a smaller scale in another part of like Seventh Avenue or Maple as a preview to Rhythm and Brews maybe? So-
Not during the streetscape, but that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, and also that would be even more harder on us to have a whole separate event and a whole separate location in May when it's all, we're trying to move something out of being in May like that. That would be, if we're doing that, we might as well just do Rhythm and Brews in May with the work that would go into that. I would
Yeah,
think.
I would think, I think I would ask for the shift for now and staying with 5. That would be sort of where we'd want to be. And then if there's a real strong, we really want to see 6, we want to see it go to half the year, then we could start to talk about that and brainstorm what that means.
We could do a ticketed concert series like Music on the Rock type thing, but Music on the Brick, down off Maple Street. Like if we had the big roofed thing, or actually with that, I want to build a second building down the other. I mean, if we're gonna do something like that, I think we should do a bigger, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
I
there's
think-
a lot of things you can do and tie in
Yeah.
both streets
Mhm.
and even, because Rhythm and Brews has gotten huge and stuff. And to John's point, there is some things that could happen smaller on Seventh Avenue that would generate things in a whole, that it would be a completely different feel.
Mhm.
I think for what we're talking right now to get Lou and Jamie and them rolling.
Yeah, that's what we need.
Good with changing the deal, but yes.
All right, well, I'll make the motion to change the schedule for Rhythm and Brews to run June through October 2024.
Second.
Great. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? I do want to
Thanks you for that.
I do want to add for other business for another month, can we do like a brainstorming session on, I mean, there's been some good ideas tossed around in the last 5 minutes, like, let's look forward to 2026, and I kind of like that ticketed music on the rock type
Mhm.
idea over there off Seventh, and that would be, like like you could do April, May, smaller cancelable things.
And trying,
Yeah.
it's every other weekend. I think it's like June and July and August, maybe. It's the same time as Rhythm and Breeze, but it's twice a week. And I
I
don't,
asked her about Rogers Park, the little. I don't know if
Little
you've ever been
amphitheater.
there. There's a little amphitheater down in Tryon. It's probably what, 200 people?
about 500 if they squeeze in, and they have some bands that are similar.
Yeah, and
Set
it's
up.
ticketed, right?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's not?
No, people just pay, they put some money in the jar when they come in.
I mean, an art thing, some kind of art walk thing on like Fridays in April and May
Mhm.
would be cool, but that's not happening for 2024, but that could happen for 2025, but that needs to be planned now,
Yeah.
2025.
Yeah,
25, 26.
Yeah,
Seventh Avenue is definitely gonna be driving additional activity.
yeah.
yeah, when we made that investment, we need to capitalize on it as much
Right.
as possible and show it off.
Yeah.
And with the steep lady and the art
Mhm.
mural thing that she was talking, I mean, there's a lot to be had there, so we should just like brainstorm.
Yeah, no, that would be great.
And like, how do we get to two more downtown?
Yeah, and
How do we get there? Like, what do we have to do? How much money do we have to raise? What kind of activities do we need to warrant it?
what's how we need?
Yeah, but like if we want two more staff members for downtown, and then does it become like Seventh downtown and the parks too? I don't like Patton Part 2, and we have two more or three more people that there's like concentration of downtown, and I don't know, like, what does that look like? Let's,
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Credit where it's due, Rhythm and Blues is awesome, we all like it, and so. Let's keep more of it, and now, instead of just kind of like, I can feel your stress, you're planning on the work. Pass that off to somebody else, now it's time to hire some more people, and then
Mhm.
we can think of the next thing, or y'all can.
Yeah, we just need to, like a year to two in advance will help us to be able to make that argument, because sometimes. But y'all know this, because it took how many more years for you to hire a third person in your office? Like, we need to have that to be asking for, for several years, if that's the direction that we want to go in. And then,
Yeah, it was 1.5 people for 8 years,
yeah,
9 years.
And then when Garden Jubilee is where it needs to be, that will be it's not there yet. There's a lot of tweaks and improvements to be made there, and we're already doing them for 2024. I think once we see what that 2024 Garden Jubilee looks like with all of the improvements in place, then going forward, I think that'll be a lot easier. But right now, that one's still kind of a work in progress, so that just makes it a little bit more difficult to make that happen. But once that's in like the perfect place, which is only maybe gonna take 2024, maybe 2025, then after that, that's just like, this is how it's gonna be, and that'll be smooth sailing, but now it's still working out the kinks.
as long as we still have Kim, our
Yes.
contracted people that help us with that.
And like from a broader perspective too, I mean, council has been talking, they're doing the Parks and Rec master plan. Part of the discussion is around a parks department, and we don't, there are.
Community Services Department.
Yeah, there's not a specific interest to get involved in recreation, i.e. like, soccer leagues and that sort of thing, but there is a desire to have a group of staff members that are specifically looking at the parks in the city and doing more to, instead of just mowing grass, right? Public Works does a great job maintaining them, but their primary goal and focus is on maintenance, not on sort of activating them. So
And-
there could be ways that it's not all downtown that's doing the, you know, gonna have to look probably creatively at general fund for like, you know, because we're about to take on, so downtown is already in the process of taking on additional staff. And so we've hired one and
Yeah, we've got the crew leader. He started last week and then the worker, they're interviewing some of them to eventually be a 4-person crew, which will be taking over.
This year and two.
Yeah, for whenever Bruce Lowe, the landscaper is retiring as contractor, a contractor with the city. One other thing I was gonna note as far as events that we don't do, that's kind of one that's been a little bit floating around that I've said we are not taking that over is Music on Main. That one, the TDA had turned it over to the Arts Council last year, and I haven't heard recently what their plans are for that. But that's just one that is the other kind of regular event that happens downtown that, you know, be Music on Maple, the Music on Main kind of thing. I don't know. Something to think about for longer term that we would want to have that discussion like with TBA or whoever's involved with that. Just a thought on that.
Well, one of the many cool things about the new 7th Avenue is that, you know, we can definitely think outside the box too when it comes to events. You know, we can be, I mean, it's gonna be, you know, the feel of the district is gonna change it up to where, I mean, I like the idea of a block party, you know, just like, you know, Clematis Street, West Palm, they block it off and I mean, it's kind of nuts, but it's really cool and it works.
Yeah.
You know, where you have a mix of, you know, vendors and musicians and artists and it's just something that you maybe wouldn't expect on Main Street. And that's kind of one of our advantages with 7th Avenue is that the district has its own identity separate from Main Street so that we can think and we should think outside the box.
Yeah, they don't like it on
Yeah.
Main Street. Some of them stay.
Those people.
The other.
Yeah, well, we'll put that on for maybe for January's. agenda To do,
Yeah.
January, February, do event brainstorming overall.
Put it on in February.
And the last thing I'll say on events is great job, Terry and Dakota.
Yeah.
For all of the
job.
and you guys did great. Yeah, the holiday events, it's Old Fashioned Christmas especially was something that we
Great.
wanted to have more happening and she did a great job with it.
Really well.
Yeah. So can only grow, only more for that. That's all I have on events.
I guess no one's talked about timing on that yet.
Timing.
Back to event, okay.
Okay.
Ready?
We're not gonna talk about that, right?
When we do our hit brainstorming, whatever. it is.
Event team needs to talk about,
Uh,
talked about
Perfect.
first.
Good. That's what subcommittees are for, right?
Hey, what's this thing, 7th Avenue Street?
Yeah.
What is that all about? That's new. What's that?
So.
Is that in quotes? Is that in quotes?
We wanted to tear around the street and do stuff.
Really?
We'll get some design.
Wow, I had no idea. Wow.
So Jamie and I did a presentation along with Brendan. Yeah. A presentation with council, when was that? Thursday? And was going back through some things to prep myself for it, because they were like, well, we got to give Lou a token slide to talk about the streetscape. He has been involved in it. From the outset and looking back through, and the first time it showed up was in the 2017 7th Avenue work plan, back when we had that committee meeting. And that was around about the time that we did the little bit of improvement to Maple Street where we put in the streetlights, we did the sidewalk and made some of those changes. So we have been working on it for a long time. February of 2020, we did a presentation to city council in which we sort of presented the initial project budget at that time and initial design. Of course, we know what happened after that. We over a period of time, actually went out and tried to get bids based on that original project. We did that twice over the course of 20 and 21 and weren't able to get bids either time. And so it was at that point that we kind of stepped back and started doing the construction manager at risk approach, which is lead contractor who figures out all the subs and, you know, organizes all the things. Excitingly, we are now at the end of that long process, and it looks like we have a project that we have the resources to go after. So we have in total, and we have cobbled this together because the biggest thing that has changed over the course of time is the cost of everything and the budget that we have available. So originally, when we first put this out, we got a loan for just around $2 million, which included our soft costs for design. So we've been spending on the soft costs over that course of time. We've got 1.7, give or take a couple thousand of those loan proceeds still available. We have tagged, based on the water sewer that's in the project, 865,000. We have a stormwater grant for 250,000. We're going to use POW bill funds, which are annual funds that are contributed to the city for road maintenance and road construction. We're going to use 600,000 of those, which is the vast majority of our POW bill funds for the next year. And then $100,000 in 7th Avenue fund balance, which puts us at a total project budget of just over $3.5 million. The GMP, the guaranteed maximum price, and the bids that we've gotten back on the project are putting us in a place where when we go to council on Thursday, we're going to be able to recommend a project to move forward on. So that is very, very exciting. The total project budget, or the total project estimate, with there's a couple little things that are moving around in here, but none of them are major. That the Harper put together was $3.5,040,000. So we have $3.5 million, $11,000. That does not include, that number does not include Locust, and it does not include the various like AT&T and ERC. So it does not include the cable internet providers going underground. But it does include things like the gateway sign at the west end of 7th and some increases in the size of that. So like the top end where it runs into MLK. And it also includes a couple, I mean, it includes all of the key things. The main project from MLK to the railroad tracks includes all of our landscape. It includes all of our design features, all of our stormwater, everything that we've envisioned for that project is built into that number. Locust was on its own another 320,000, and the various internet providers were about another 130 to 150,000. There's some unknown costs with the internet providers because they would charge us labor for moving lines. So there's some added and additional costs there. Any additional budget would have to be a policy decision, would have to come from the fund balance, basically. Like we've fished every pot of money that we have available at the city to pull together the 3.5, right? So we knew it was going to be over the original loan proceeds that we had. So I'm excited because we're going to do the project. I know you guys have clearly expressed the desire to do the project A to Z, and I'm telling you, well, we're going to do it A to X. but there are a couple of things that are included in there that I'll note, with the power lines. Duke is going to the taller poles. So we are gonna get some more height out of all of those things. And overall, I think it's pretty exciting. And we've basically worked with each and every property owner. I mean, I'd say the one benefit of the project taking as long as it has to kind of come together has been the opportunity to talk with each property owner, and basically get everybody pretty much on board. The last one that we had a conversation with was JJ, who actually Jeff Miller and Jen went to see him to talk with him about kind of figuring out some of the issues that he had. So
Kilpatrick's.
at Kilpatrick's, yeah, I'm sorry, at the upholstery shop. So everyone is kind of on board with the design and the changes. What's that?
They had issues?
He did. We were impacting some parking around
He came
the
to one of-
building.
One of our.
Yeah, he came to one of our meetings to talk about those. I mean, he's been engaged the whole time for credit there. So we're excited. We think, well, I know that John and Brian, the city manager and the assistant city manager, are gonna go to council on Thursday and recommend the project without the alternates, without the Locust Street and without the broadband changes. And we have every reason to believe that the project's gonna get approved and that they'll accept the GMP at that point. And that will give John the authority then to start negotiating the contracts, get the project going.
So
Nobody has, I listened to the presentation.
Okay,
The only thing that I didn't hear was somebody taking a stab at the timeline.
yeah, so we'll be getting that as we start negotiating the contracts. I mean, I think the thing that we've made very clear is that the board's desire is for the project timeline to be as short as it can be. And they've told us, well, if you allow us to close the whole street, we think we can save time. They first came with that request to go to Locust. So from MLK to Locust and then do like a Locust to the railroad tracks. We said, hey, can you shorten it even more if you go the whole distance? So we're still working with them to figure out what that will be.
They've pretty much just said that the timing of what is happening on Thursday. That is what was the critical next step to be able to know what the timeline
Yeah, it's
would
gonna be
be, 'cause
like,
that's the extent of what we've been given. As far as.
until John is authorized to enter into contracts, the contractors are so part of what happens is the contractors ask for as much information from their subs as they possibly can. And then at a certain point, the subs say, I don't have a contract. I'm not doing any more work for you until I have a contract. And so we're at that point. And that's why Thursday is so important, because that puts us in the position to start signing contracts.
So let's assume that all happens on Thursday,
Yeah,
as far as, could you even be a guess at a reasonable start date?
they have said January, February.
Still January, February.
Yeah. Obviously we'll be bugging the crap out of them and John knows the desire to get it going. So I think what our goal would be is once the GMP gets approved on Thursdays to try to get contracts in place before we get to the holidays. So that the contractors are doing their work, their prep to get on site as soon as they can.
So leaving Locust out doesn't affect doing anything with Locust in the future.
It does not. The project is still there. We would have to. Where this price is not gonna stay there. Some new price would have to be assigned for the project in the future, but yeah, there's nothing that prevents us from. We've done the design work, we have the design work.
But the internet thing is a now or never thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say that's more accurate, yes. Yeah,
So that's what I was gonna ask about. The Locust could be it could be a blessing in disguise to not do Locust right now, like we could have some other amazing thing come up or idea or whatever that would tag on with everything else, but I don't exactly understand what is with the internet or the,
Well, I mean, the primary thing is what our number is, and that another 150 would have to come from the fund balance. And that admin does not want to recommend that council pull from the fund balance. Now, council could say, thank you, we'd like to pull from the fund balance and do this. But the recommendation that's coming from John and Brian will be, we can do with this budget, this part of the project, and we do not recommend doing anything else and pulling from fund balance.
what is that part?
The 150 is the Berry line.
Yeah, it's a very,
Alternative is,
to bury just
They'll just be on.
AT&T. They'll just be on the lines. It would be to bury AT&T and ERC.
But if you don't bury them, they're on the poles, right?
They're on the poles. That's right.
That are getting raised, and you're not burying the power lines anyway,
That's right.
so why spend the money to bury part of it if you're not gonna do all of it?
And
It only does make sense to spend some more money, since you were gonna do Locust, and there was a big conversation about stopping going past the railroad tracks and tying in the Locust, so you never have to go back and do that. For $320,000, it ain't gonna be any cheaper any other time, and the disruption's not gonna be any different. I do understand something might change, but something's gonna change regardless. But that way it's done at 320,000 versus 780 next time we look at it.
Mhm,
And then we're not able to go past the railroad tracks again,
mhm.
because now you gotta do that. I'm just throwing that out there as, I'm sure they can find $320,000. They find it for everything else they wanna do. There's, many other things, there's many other things. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents worth.
But
Yeah.
it seems to me from having done this before. The comms segment of that project is insignificant. Right, but it,
of the Locust or the,
no.
out of lines.
okay,
Basically, what they want to do is pull their hardwire off the poles. Convert it to fiber, right, in the case of AT&T, right? In the case of Optimum, whatever, they'll pull the cable underneath. But what I heard you say earlier was, they are charging the city to do this. And I say, yeah, not so much, right? Because Harvard can run the conduit, right? That's not AT&T.
Right.
AT&T is getting an opportunity to increase their business profile in the district. All right, by pulling, they don't have fiber. Right, and so they're losing out on income. Optimum is simply less efficient because they've got wires running every place like an old cable company. It's a joke over there. So $150 or $150,000, that's pocket change to begin with, but that's something that the communication companies should be subsidizing. If Harper can run the conduit, right?
Yeah.
I've done this
Mhm.
in other locations and, we put the infrastructure in, the pipe, right? And then they come in and pull their cable
Mhm.
and they get to have customers.
Yeah.
Right now, AT&T doesn't. Because,
We don't have the authority to make them do it.
no, you don't. But it's a negotiation.
And if this doesn't happen now, it's not going to happen.
not underground.
Not-
Not underground,
Right.
Not under,
So,
not unless they do it.
so it's basically the net result is the aesthetics of having the. wires.
Yeah, well, and with the poles being there, they can add whatever else comes through. We will never have any say on what is added.
Yeah, so the point Jamie's making is like AT&T and ERC in this project, And 6 months after we're done, you could have a new cable provider come in and run line on the poles.
Right,
And we have no authority to control that.
right.
They're new poles and the way utilities commissions work and all that. We're not, if the poles are there, we don't have any authority over who's on them or where who can put stuff on there. So it's kind of, there's a couple of other things too. I mean, there'd be some impacts to the sidewalk. If we have pull boxes instead of the overhead, you're gonna have these, they're basically boxes. You can see them in lots of places around town where they can get to all of their equipment. So those would have to make their way into the sidewalk design, which they wouldn't if we're not underlined or underground. The new lines in the future thing that we just kind of talked about. And we also do not have the same kind of control over AT&T and ERC that we do over Harper. So we don't have any of the kind of timing penalties and incentives that we can work into the contract with Harper for AT&T. So that is an unknown that we'd be introducing they could, so the poles have to come down, the existing electric poles have to come down at a specific point. And we can't leave the old ones. And what AT&T will do, you've seen it all around town, I'm sure. Duke puts in new poles. AT&T doesn't do anything. There's a chopped off pole next to the new pole until AT&T comes in and puts their line on the new pole. So if they were burying them and they weren't ready to do that or something, all of those things would be impacted. None of that, if we're staying on overhead we're not going to allow that to happen when Duke does the new poles. And so all that happens with the concrete, with the sidewalks, so that we're not coming back in and patching anything that we're doing as we go. So we have really thought about this because you guys have expressed so vigorously your interest in seeing it happen. And I know it's like, well, it's a $3.5 million project. It's only another 150 or 200,000. There are other ripple impacts and there are also future impacts that we can't control that may put us right back where we were, where we are. And so we think that what we're focused on and where the money is going is where it's going to have the biggest impact. No matter what, we're going to have those poles and wires in the district. We're just not going to be able to remove that aspect of the design. Unfortunately, we really did look at that early on with Duke.
I remember.
So I totally agree about I think we all on the same page about wanting to get Locust done and doing it now while the disruption is happening. But I mean, if you're saying the money's not there, is that basically what you're saying?
So can we
Well,
stay on the cable piece for a minute and then talk about Locust? Cause they're basically separate things. I mean.
yeah, that's fair. They're two different alternates.
So you did make a point about, yes, they should be doing this, but they're not. But like all that being said,
Lou makes a great point.
right,
In the 3 different projects where this was necessary.
Mhm.
I had the benefit of going into the contract and all of these things had already been included and coordinated. So all of the utility companies were on board and there wasn't a, cart before the horse.
well, they never were all on board, like in the very beginnings of this, like I remember talking about the Duke piece, that was 1.2 million more or some crazy number to bury them.
It could even work for that.
Yeah, and then when they were doing the repairs on the water, there's all that old pipe. I mean, it like dominoed out of control kind of. So, I mean, you made a good point, but is that one to leave on the table as is or show up all of us as individuals and board members at council and say, we want this too, figure it out, or let's figure it out.
The most important thing that Lou said was that none of these other companies are under the city's control.
The timing would
Right.
be
You
faster.
can't control the flow and completion of the project, then you end up with.
A mess. So like the half chopped off pole that you have to patch later and all that.
And
So it's not worth it.
No.
Okay,
yes,
Or you have a sidewalk ripped up, ready for
Right,
it, and they're like,
right.
yeah, we'll,
you know, what might be worth,
maybe next week.
what might be worth looking at is if Harper could bury the conduit and drop in the bolts, and that's what, and that's for the equipment. For the fiber equipment, and anything underground goes into a waterproof bolt, right? And those would be located.
So
They could
AT&T,
create those.
they're willing to do that and they want you to kick in their labor.
No.
So we have costs for doing that. And then AT&T charges us to put their stuff in the vaults. So we pay to put the vaults in and then they charge us to put their.
is the vault in that now?
That's what the alternate
And
is.
then all the labor.
That's what the alternate fees are. It's to
Oh, to put the vault?
put the infrastructure in so that we can do the underground.
So the conduit and bolts are already in the 3.5 mil.
No,
Oh, yeah, that's the extra 130 or 40.
yeah, that's the alternate. And then on top of that, ERC and AT&T charge us to labor to put everything in there.
So the 130, 150 even goes up.
It does, yeah. It's not just that. That's what's in the contract, but we have unknown costs for AT&T and.
You would think that they would really want to have their stuff down there.
You'd think.
Normally, that's the case.
If the vault go in,
With somebody else.
is there something, let's say in 10 years, Duke's on a big thing to bury all of it, can that go in then or no?
The electric wouldn't be able.
The electric wouldn't, okay,
No.
because
They
it has a
told
different
us that-
size or something like that.
Yeah, when we were talking about that, they were like, you would have to have like it would have to be a man-sized vault in the middle of the road.
Right.
Basically what they told us.
I mean,
Because they have three-phase power. Yeah. I mean, most of the power that serves, like if somebody runs into a telephone pole on Seventh Avenue, most of the city will drop power.
And so if we did the vaults, these one or two vaults for these two fiber sources, that still doesn't prevent additional internet companies from coming in and adding additional lines.
but it also provides infrastructure for them to come in and put it underneath, right?
I think
Is
just
that-
for those.
Can it be done after? I don't even know the answer to, yes, I mean, I assume, but
I mean, that's what, like, whenever we see like the sidewalk that's been torn up because Vive or whatever has come in and put it in because there's internet companies have the ability basically
Yeah,
to just do whatever they want.
utilities can work in the right of way. So they can break up sidewalk and do what they want to do.
Take down trees.
And really and truly, even if you had that in and somebody came in, they'd probably rather just go along.
On the pole anyway.
Anyway, rather than try to get
Yeah.
it ground in all the boxes.
Yeah,
I don't know.
the bigger difficulty for them is tying the services into the businesses. So if they're underground, that's.
we're gonna have to pull anyway, it probably doesn't matter, but I guess I have a history of watching projects. Like 2 different boards I was on, we built a building, we opted not to make it sound for adding a second story, and guess what we're doing now? Putting a second story on them. We decided not to build the elevator in this building, guess what we need now? We need a freaking elevator. So I mean. That's where I'm coming from.
No, I understand. I think it's good to, I mean, our city engineer is, there is no one better at doing just that. Than predicting. You know, if we're gonna do this project, we need to do it completely. And Brent is, well, he's not the city engineer anymore. He's now the city developments. I don't even want to know what his title.
Public.
He's the big guy.
Public
Overall, of it.
services, public
Yeah,
services.
public services. And so we rely on him for a lot of that. And I think, you know, I believe that we are thinking about those things in a very realistic way. I just do not see, because we really pressed Duke early on. We asked him, can you put it in the alleyway behind Matthews? Can we shift them to the other side of the street? Can we shift them to the alleyway on the other side of the street? all of the logistics of doing so and the way that power lines, I learned a lot about power lines, but you know, the way that one pole relates to the other and that they can't be offset from each other for the balance and the weight of the lines. Those aren't going off of Main. Or off of Seventh. We are pulling them off of a lot of places. They won't be on the other side of the street. We've reduced everything, I think, that we legitimately can.
Okay, I mean,
I mean, if for what it's worth, I am personally comfortable with the decision process we've gone through to make this decision. I think we've looked at all the alternatives. I don't think we're making just a price point decision. I think we're making one that's related both to the cost, what our budget is, and what we get for spending that money.
We want it, but that deal sucks.
Right, yeah, right.
Whether it's for the underground or for Locust, can we monetize our tax revenue to accomplish that?
So we're already hitting the fund balance for Seventh. To do the project with with the budget we have, we're taking $100,000 from the Seventh Avenue fund balance, which is basically the Seventh Avenue savings account. That is the monetized tax revenue.
How long?
Well, that's just what we have in the account right now. I don't know what that is.
It's,
I mean, that's built up over the.
yeah, I mean, it's not
last
depleting
6
the
or
whole
7
thing.
years.
It's basically taking what would be
Taking it back,
advisable to be
yeah.
able to take out of
So
it.
we're leaving some in there for security reasons to have, it's good to have some amount of fund balance. MSDs don't specifically have to have a fund balance, but
We've been building ours in both districts pretty well.
yeah, for a while.
Sorry.
It's a good use of it. But in terms of, you know,
We can't anticipate.
We can anticipate it for future years, but or we can anticipate the revenue that comes to the district as far as the property tax revenue every year. The sales tax depends on the economy. But the district itself, the budget, like the annual operating budget for Seventh Avenue is gonna have a lot more expenses once this is done, as far as the landscaping, clean up all the events that we're wanting to do and all of that kind of stuff. So, as far as for future years, like basically you're saying like borrowing against future.
Yeah.
That's something that I don't really have an answer to, but as far as annual budgets for it, Seventh Avenue already is a much tighter budget than Main Street just because of the number of buildings that are in it that contribute to the.
you're talking about, like tax increment financing is what they call that. Where basically you say, our tax value in the future is gonna be X. And so we're gonna leverage, this project is gonna make our tax, you know, right today it's 100,000. We're gonna invest 150,000 and we're gonna be worth 500,000 after that. And we're gonna leverage that increased tax revenue that we're gonna get. And
Yeah.
we're gonna pay it. No, yeah, it is. It's worked really well in other states. In North Carolina, it's got like 3 or 4 like crash and burn terrible stories. So the LGC, the local government finance entity is really not particularly, does not look fondly upon it. We talked about it with the Gray Mill, actually. We didn't use it. We have explored it in other cases. Greenville used it really productively. It's how they built all their parking garages. They leveraged future tax revenue to build a lot of that stuff, but has not been used in North Carolina a lot. So, sorry, that's a bit of a sidetrack, but.
So what about Locust? You go now, Matthew. Sorry, I just wanted to like.
No, I mean, I think, you know. Yeah, the hope would be to get it done and get it done while the disruption is happening in general, but I guess just, I wanted to hear, it sounds to me like you're saying it's not going to happen.
So what I would say is that we have a fund balance. The city has a general fund balance, which is our savings. There are requirements. I think it has to be maintained at like 20% or 25% of our income, our revenues. And ours is currently at 32 or 33%, something like that. So there is available fund balance. The city manager and Brian are gonna look at council and say, do not spend fund balance on this project. Here's the 3.5 that we have to pay for it. You can't do Locust with that, and you can't do the broadband with it. Council has the authority to make a policy decision about which way to go with that, but they're gonna get a strong recommendation from their fiscal folks not to do that. And the reason is primarily that you want fund balance for the things that are unpredictable, that come up, that, you know, we blew up a garbage truck and we gotta buy another one and we weren't planning for it. And a garbage truck is $250,000. So, you know, go do that. And so that's where that comes from. So, you know, to kind of the point that which is true. Well, the city has money. Yes, the city has money. I had a friend who used to tell me, first thing I do when I go to a new town is go meet the richest man in town. Who's the richest man in town? The guy who works for the city, you know? And it's true, but we have worked hard to have, you know, this sort of a clear picture of what a fiscally responsible way of like moving these projects forward over time is. And so that's what John and Brian are going to go to council with. So yes, council could make a decision to do Locust now. I do get that one's a little more difficult, you know. I don't think that we're, you know, the way I think about it is the same way I think about Main Street and a lot of the other things we've done over time is each additional thing and project that you do begets the next opportunity. You do something well, it creates opportunity to do it again. And we're doing 7th because Main went well. And I think if we do a section of 7th and it goes well, then we'll have an opportunity to do another section of 7th. And if we do that, you know, intentionally and with, I don't know, the right mix of restraint and go get it.
Well, the project on-
ourselves in a good position.
The plan on Locust isn't nearly as
Involved. No, it's
How
not.
far does it go down?
It goes to, yeah, you want to put it right.
It doesn't even go
It
that far
doesn't
now.
go that far any longer. It just goes to, what is that street? It's like.
Lucas,
Yeah,
if you can even tell from this.
it's a little further than what's on that image, but it's not dramatically further than that, right? I don't think.
Is there some piece of Locust that could be done that would minimize
8th Ave.
future disruptions to finish it?
So if you'll see where the project end is, so we're the entire intersection of 7th and Locust is being done. So everything that's grayed out on this image, streetscape is part of the project that's part of the 3.5. Everything that's highlighted and beyond is not. So it's primarily sidewalk and some tree planters. There is a decent amount of Duke power work in that section because there's a power pole that's in an alleyway that was going to be moved. So, you know.
Is that cost of the project or is Duke covering that?
Duke,
Not even included in.
it's not
have-
included. Duke has been better than the other utilities. So I don't want to say that they won't charge us anything, but they have not been. They haven't done what the other utilities have done.
I mean, really and truly, when we first started talking about the streetscape, there was a lot more street and the budget was half the price.
Yeah,
So now there's a lot less street and the budget is twice the price. Cause at one time it was going down Locust and across the railroad tracks to the taco place. Now it's back at the railroad tracks or thereabouts. and not going down Locust for twice the price, so. I guess we're getting what we're getting and. Is what it is, let's just. Get rolling on it.
I would just say that not necessarily for Locust Street, but for farther down Seventh, that the city and the engineering department in particular has a lot of federal funds that they're going after for completion of Seventh Avenue and connection for all the trails and greenways and everything. I'm not saying it's been awarded, but there is a lot of potential there just because there's so much infrastructure money available.
We've gone after, to that point, yeah, we've gone after a larger grant called Above the Mud. We're calling it Above the Mud, which is designed to be a greenway connection between the Acosta to the Ocklawaha. So taking the greenway from South Main, kind of through Jackson Park-ish over to Seventh, and then making the connection up the street. And there's federal highway funds, reconnecting communities funds that we've pursued. We've put together a grant application, gone after the grant, been turned down, but gotten feedback on here's how to improve your grant application. Here's what to add to that. And that includes like the phase 3, phase 2, way back when, streetscape projects. So we think there's still lots of opportunity and like, we're working on this one today. I think Jamie's point would be like, we're also working on what's next down the street and looking for, because yeah, there's a reason all the projects cost more now, because the Federal Highway Administration has billions of dollars out there. But we can go get some of those billions and put them to work in our community. So
We just need one.
yes, we need to.
One big one.
Yeah.
One of those billion.
One of those.
I do apologize, I have to leave early, so,
What do you think? What's your last thought?
my last thought is, I mean, they're making their recommendations to council. So, I think if you look at that, I mean, as far as, the major disruption is going to be obviously Seventh Avenue. So, if it comes to be where Locust needs to get done next year, then it'll still get done. And it needs to get done, especially with the tie-in with Seventh Avenue. I'd rather it get done this year, but I understand that situation. So, I mean, if that's a recommendation from staff to council, then that's probably what they're gonna accept, and we'll get Seventh Avenue done,
Probably, but I mean, if we felt really strongly differently and a handful of us showed up and we're like,
I mean,
no, then they
the sidewalks are
probably,
pretty, the sidewalks are
I mean,
pretty
they
rough.
talk about it, they
Well, they,
would not hear what we had to say and not say a word about it, they would talk about it.
they-
And I'm not saying we need to do that, I'm just like, this is what we're here.
this is not, I do not want this to come across as fear mongering, but one potential outcome of that would be like, well, wait a minute. They're gonna direct staff to go back and look at it.
Right, which will take longer.
Which will
Yeah,
take-
we need,
Well, I'm not saying that's what we need to do, but
I'm not
This is a
saying
big-
that's a
like, this is a,
express yourself, but
yeah,
it is a potential outcome.
Let's roll with it.
Seventh Avenue needs to get done. As soon, I mean, it's just, so, any distractions, any, yeah, I mean, I think.
I just wanted
Everybody-
to discourse. What am I supposed to sit here and say, everybody listen to Lou, no one asked any questions?
You're not.
No,
know.
I'm supposed
What,
to invite conversation and dialogue
Let's
about
do
it.
a fundraiser for the 320. I mean, we can figure it out. We'll do a big sale.
But I think we can
She's
do,
making-
yeah, the price is gonna go up, Chris, but I mean, there's lots of different opportunities. It's only way down. I mean, there's like Coca-Cola building at the end. We could take it further. There's lots of cool things.
And they are doing the intersections.
Yeah.
Disruption will be
Yeah.
on the other side of the stop sign.
Yeah.
So, looking from one way to the other, it's gonna look finished and all that, and who knows, Main Street worked along the way. There was a section of it done. I think it was a longer time before the next section was done, and it did change. And then the next section and the next section, because they realized what they had needed to tweak a little bit. So, maybe it's a blessing in disguise, but
I mean, the last section done on Main is better than the first section that they did on
Yeah.
Main, for sure.
And at the end of the day, let's get it rolling because we have talked about this a lot and I think it will be a huge improvement regardless. It's kind of like do something even if it's wrong.
It's not.
And then we'll figure it out.
We don't want it lingering into the summer either. And like,
No, we
this
need-
project going on.
Yeah, we need to
gotta
start
get
it
started now.
and completed so that the primary development run, from MLK down to the tracks, and is finished. We got basically 3 businesses on Locust that would impact. And that's not going to, set the world on fire. If it comes later,
And how the phasing was gonna be, it would be at a different time anyway, which I know the cost would be different, but it would be a different.
Building on the corner, if it ended up, something happened to it and it, like if a car ran into it, then it would definitely be a tear down. It's almost a tear down now.
The old bus station, the great,
oh no,
No, the one with
You're talking
the
about-
bear.
oh,
The one next to
Farewell Brewing.
fell
I got
apart.
Yeah, which, I mean, I hope nothing happens to that building, but let's say something did. And we'd already done the streetscape, we could potentially incorporate that
Hmm.
lot into like a cool, green space or whatever. I mean, yeah, we never know what's coming down the road with opportunity like that. Well, if Chris says, let's get it rolling, then
Feel good about it.
the man has spoken. Yeah, if Chris and Phil are on board, then let's go.
I'm excited. It's
It's been a long time.
been a long time coming. And it's gonna be a great project. You're real
It's
positive.
gonna suck while it's happening and we've
Yes,
all
it's
gone
gonna
past
suck
that.
while
We're just gonna.
We're gonna try and minimize that. Yeah, so council will be presented with the GMP barring something crazy on Thursday. And
It's a special meeting for them, right?
it's a special meeting just to do this. And then yeah,
And I have to ask Blue to send out any kind of.
oh yeah, that's right. You're gonna be, yeah, we can do that.
any
We'll
publicity taken out.
we will do that. We'll make sure that.
I send it out as soon as they pass it. You can watch online.
I think
I don't know if this one will be online because they're doing it
it's a
at the
lot.
Whitmire building right before the staff Christmas lunch.
Yeah, I don't know if it is.
So it probably, I don't think they'll have the
You-
ability to straighten that.
Yeah, I'll update everybody.
What else?
What businesses are in Locust?
Yeah, I know. So I'll get my
Bicycle shop,
downtown dollars.
plumbing.
We want to talk on that.
There's a chemical company.
We can,
Do we talk about it now or we can talk about it as economic vitality?
There's of course the brew.
actually, can we talk about it in committee first?
Sure.
Are you sure? Okay.
Okay.
Quite a
And a laundromat. Dry cleaners.
And then the last thing, I don't have much to update. I was just gonna, I've already mentioned that we have our new crew leader who started. His name's Eric. He's actually in I think it's Air National Guard, or he's a National Guard of some sort. But he did very similar work as far as downtown, landscaping in Melbourne, Florida.
Clean that plate off.
But he moved up to Rutherford County, so he lives in Rutherford County, recently, and so he's got some good experience in it, so we've walked through, pointed out a few things, and he's gonna be, interviewing, the worker position for that, so I'm sure y'all will see Eric at some point or another.
This is a landscaping guy, or this is?
Yeah.
Downtown.
Yeah, landscaping, so he'll, that will be eventually, this whole crew will be doing the work of what Bruce Lowe, the landscape contractor, currently does. And so our plan is for him to work very closely with Bruce for the next year and a half that we have Bruce under contract, and I think Bruce will continue to offer consultation after that, as long as we don't make him mad or anything. And so then to eventually have that position or that whole Department of Downtown Landscaping be done in-house. We did walk through, along with, the Parks Maintenance Department and Building Maintenance, who's gonna be working with Eric a lot too, about, a couple of the planters, and we've talked about that in our CIP budget, but talking about the streetscape. This is another thing we've been talking about for years, has been, the planters by Hannah's and Mountain Deli, and even the one kind of by the Indian restaurant, of where they're so large, it creates a very squeezed in area for people to be able to walk, or if they wanted to have dining, and those happen to be all at restaurants. Previously, Public Works said no, but now I'm getting a little bit of momentum on getting some conversations on that. So I'll bring that back to y'all with a few different ideas for it, because what I've suggested is, taking those planters out and just putting the electrical boxes in, like how they have over the independent ones, and then having some like at grade trees to have some more room there. So I'll come back to y'all with some thoughts on.
Just those three.
Those are the main ones, because those are all ones where the serpentine is skinny versus wide.
It's like where it's pushed against that side of the street.
Yeah, yeah. So those are the three particular ones that this board's been talking about since I've been here.
And those were left in place. So those are all just built right on the asphalt.
Mhm.
It's just like the old asphalt, like the pre-1978 asphalt. They're just like pots, basically. So
They just built the brick around them.
they just built the brick up around them.
For instance, the one at Hannah's isn't gonna open up the sidewalk any because of the parking that's just beyond it.
Well, if you took that out and just did a small at-grade planter, you would have more, basically you'd get more concrete, you'd get sidewalk, yeah.
So because right now, they don't have a lot of room for their dining, and then when there's events or something like that, it is like
It's
Tough to get.
very quick.
not- to your point, it's not gonna create like this massive new area of sidewalk, but it will like take a little bit of the pinch point out of play.
Yeah, and the electrical boxes that are built into the brick planters, the ones that are like that, have had a lot of problems as far as water and ants and all this other stuff getting into them. So we probably would be looking to have more of the ones that are standalone units, which could open us up to some other projects as far as like wrapping them. I don't know if you've seen the ones in Brevard, they've got some nice ones there. So that might be something that we can look at going forward, is just something with those electrical boxes.
When is that?
We don't know, we've talked about it with Public Works.
Like a
Yeah,
TBD, right?
yeah, and so then what
You
probably,
guys would have a chance to.
yeah, I would get a few different options from them of what we can do, and then bring it to y'all to talk about it.
That for years.
Yeah, I saw Jamie talking to Public Works the other day on the street about this, and I was like, yeah, I better not go over there. They won't do it. They'll be like, oh, Lou's coming, he wants these gone.
Badgering them enough, then something eventually. That's all the updates that I really have.
What else?
Yeah.
What about John Ryan's?
I think we're going to, do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to talk about it at a team meeting first?
We can go to the team meeting first. It's not a big deal.
And then we can, if it needs to vote by the whole board. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about in future meetings?
You can always just send it to. Send it, I can add it.
Nice to know what we're going to talk about later.
Welcome to.
There we go. That's all we need. All right.
Thank you. Everyone have a great Christmas.